Hi, this is Lori at Threads Run Through It. I'm going to go over a technique that I teach in my beginners class, so I'm hoping that some of you might want to sign up for that and just look at our schedule or our online classes, and you'll be able to see which dates that we have those beginner classes. Okay, so what I have here is some fabric. I'm going to go over cutting fabric. Everybody cuts fabric different, and some of you probably realize that you get a little smiley face in your fabric when you cut it and you don't know where that's coming from. Well, it's coming from cutting off the grain of the fabric. You always want to be on the grain when you cut your fabric. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then a simple technique in cutting to keep your cuts nice and straight. So first of all, most fabric comes 42 to 45 inches on the bolt, and when you take it off the bolt or you get it cut at a store, like our store, you take it home and you press the top of it and you leave the fold in it and you start cutting. You trim off one piece and you start cutting. But normally it's not on grain when it's on the bolt, so that would not be the appropriate way to do it. So this piece of fabric I took right off the bolt, and if I was to start cutting right from the edge, as I cut, I would receive a smiley face for about that much of the fabric. So the best thing to do is to press out, and I'm going to use this piece of fabric because I've already pressed it, is to press out your fold. Okay, so this would have been the fold. I took it to the ironing board and I pressed it out as best as possible. And if it doesn't come out, a little bit's okay. The main thing is that you want it to stop. It has a memory and it wants to keep going back to that fold. You want to get rid of it so the memory is not there. And then if I was to line this fabric up like it came off the bolt, you'll be able to tell that it's not on grain because it has a wrinkle in the bottom of the fabric. Do you see that? There's a wrinkle in the bottom of the fabric. So when you line up your selvages, if you slide them until the wrinkle is gone, okay, slide the selvages until the wrinkle is gone out of your fabric, now it would be on grain. And if you notice over here, that's how far it is off. And normally it's much more than this, especially on the 108-inch wide backings. You're going to find that you could be off 3 or 4 inches. But it's important to know that, that you need to fold it, or you need to get it on grain and run your salvages. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is lay it on my board. So this is a memory mat that we are using. Memory mats are not supposed to be used for measuring. They are to be used for cutting, and you can use it to get a straight line to get your initial cut. So I'm laying my fabric and salvages away from me. I'm going to take my fold and slide it down on the line on the bottom, which is this blue line. It doesn't matter which one it is. You just want to make sure it's far enough on the mat that your ruler is going to be able to lay below it and above the fabric, okay? So I'm laying it on the mat. So basically, the only thing that is on grain right now is where that selvage is. So I have to put my glasses on because I can't see, you know, that age thing. All right, so I've got my rotary cutter in hand, and I'm taking my ruler. I'm going to take over and get a straight edge. But let's talk about this ruler for a second. It's clear for a reason, and this is a Creative Grids ruler, which is nice. It has these bumps on the back that help to hold the ruler. So these are things that we keep in the shop. So you want to look down through the ruler and you want to look at the lines on the map. And I always cut from left to right, just like you would read. Instead of turning the fabric after I cut it and start cutting on this side, I cut straight through from left to right. So I'm going to look down through the ruler, and I'm looking at the lines through the ruler at the lines on the mat, okay? I'm not lining it up on the edge. I want to find something that's close, that when I cut a straight edge, I'm not cutting a lot of my fabric off. All right, so, and I have my ruler down below my fabric here and above my fabric here, because you want to go straight across, okay? All right, so now I've looked straight through. I'm going to start with my hand down low, and I have something that's called a fulcrum. It's like when you hold your pencil. I'm going to do counter pressure. So as I'm cutting across, my ruler is not going to move. So here's my counter pressure, and it's different for everybody in their hand size. You may only use a pinky. I'm going to use 2 fingers on the edge, okay? So the two important things is 1, counter pressure, 2, don't pick up your rotary cutter. So if something happens, your rotary cutter is still in your fabric and you can readjust, because you can see the line underneath my ruler all the way down. If I was to move it, you could see that it came off, okay? So I'm going to put it right back on there. I'm going to start down low, open my rotary cutter, and this is where your finger goes, and you should have a nice even arm all the way through, okay? So fingers are down, I'm hanging on to the side of my ruler. I'm going to cut to where the edge of my fingers are in my hand, and then I'm going to pick my hand up, and I'm not walking it, I'm just picking it up, and I'm going to move it up. Then I'm going to cut again. Now at this point, if I keep my rotary cutter in my fabric and my ruler shifted, it's very easy to push your ruler right back to where it's supposed to be on its line, okay? Put your finger back down, cut to the end of it, and then keep cutting. Lock your rotary cutter, that's very important, and then move the piece of fabric that you cut, not the fabric that you're cutting into. Now I have a straight edge, and all I need to do is find out, put my ruler where I want to have my cut. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to line up my cut. Now when I put it on here, as you can see, there's a little skosh of fabric, and I mean just a little. I know that's a new word we're going to put in the dictionary, huh? There's a skosh of fabric on the left-hand side of the line, and I cut like that because it's always easier to have a little more, but I look at it as the edge of the ruler takes up space. The line that I'm cutting on takes up space. So if I put that line right on the edge, I'm already short. Also, my blade takes up space. So I put my fabric when I'm lining up my ruler just so I can see the hairs of the fabric on the left-hand side of my cut, okay? And that way I know when I get done I have an exact cut and I'm not taking up a whole lot. Again, my fingers are down to the edge of my finger, to the edge of my finger, to the edge of my finger, shut my rotary cutter and move the piece that I want out of the way. And that's perfect cut for you. And thank you for spending some time with us today.